In this episode of Inspire and Be Inspired, I'm interviewing Clive Hawkins. Now, Clive, to some, has reached a stage of financial freedom, and he's a walking, talking example of how you can bounce back from failure time and time again to help you achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Clive has launched businesses that have failed, but he's also invested in companies that have done really well, and I'm really looking forward to diving into his story a bit more. Okay, so welcome to Inspire and Be Inspired. We are here with Clive Hawkins. First of all, how are you, Clive?
Yeah, feeling good today, actually. Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, it's Friday, right?
And you are a serial entrepreneur. I think that's probably the best way to describe you. And I've given the viewers a little bit of an introduction to you and about you just before the interview has started, but I wanted to hear it directly from you and for you to let everyone know about your entrepreneurial journey when you first left employment to become an entrepreneur.
Well, it's a good question. I'm not quite sure really what entrepreneur means. It means different things to everyone, and people use these words like dragons and all this other kind of thing. But for me, I guess being an entrepreneur is breaking away from a corporate environment. I mean, I was very successful. I was lucky and successful, and I worked really hard. I mean, I came from a very working class background where my mum was a dinner lady, my dad was in a pill factory. They got made redundant and ended up in running pubs. So I grew up in pubs. But then I worked really hard. I was the only person in my family, generations of my family, to get a degree, and I got a degree in technology. And at the time, they didn't care what your background was, or I think probably still don't care. But back then, I think some of the more posh investment banks were looking for people from Russell Group and Oxford, Cambridge people. They took me on, and I ended up having a career in investment banking, which was really rewarding, really well paid, but actually quite restrictive and imprisoning. So I found myself on the 5:42 train every morning, go on holiday and be constantly interrupted, weekend work. It was just, it was very well paid, and in the beginning exciting, but ultimately not really a good situation for the long term. And that drove me. I'm not an artistically creative person, but I'm always thinking about what the next thing is. And I just felt trapped really at work, and decided that I wanted to do something myself. So when I was 30, I'm 51 now, but so 20 years ago when I was 30, I actually left banking at a point where I was doing really well, and started a company called clevercab.com.
Just to pause you there, Clive, what was the driver to actually make you quit your job? Because I know there's a lot of people who may have similar emotions. They may be in a really highly well-paid job and experiencing stress every day, but not necessarily have the encouragement or the willpower to move on to something different. So what actually was the catalyst for you to quit?
I think that's a really good question. I think, and every person has a different motivation in their life. I just felt, for me, and I don't belittle people who spend an entire career, as a postman or a milkman, and they can be really happy, and that happiness is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. But for me, I wasn't getting the creative space that I needed in a corporate environment. No matter how creative corporates want to be, there's a restrictive element of, if you're managing other people's money and products and global products, you can't adapt and create at the speed that some people want to do it. And I was just full of ideas and energy that couldn't be replicated in that kind of environment. And I felt that I could make a bigger impact and feel, more valuable to myself, I guess, if I could sort of break free of those chains and pursue an idea that I had at the time. And I was very convinced that idea was going to be good, make a lot of money, be good for the world, all that stuff you do when you're a new business, and really believed in it. Other people believed in it. I collected £1 million in checks off the trading floor in a couple of days, just telling people, not even without a business plan, just telling people the ideas, and got £1 million in the bank, and which I'm very, it was a very lucky situation for me in the environment I was in. I was able to get that money, but I also literally put everything I had on the line.
Yeah.
And ultimately that didn't work out. The tech bubble blew up, and actually people didn't believe that taxis were going to be an online thing, and it didn't work out. But it effectively, I got out of it what I wanted, which was freedom, creativity, a buzz, the ability to just to do my own thing, and that's, I guess, what it was inside in the first place and drove me to do it.
So I think that's a really good point that you've made there. Your first business, which I want you to just explain a little bit more, but your first business failed. And, I think that's really important for people to know that, failure is part of the journey when it comes to running your own business or doing your own side hustle.
Massively. I think that I've had loads of fail. I think you've got to be in a position where you expect to fail, or you know that that's a possibility. I think if you don't think you're going to fail, it's naive. And my way of managing is a very pessimistic planning. I always think of what can go wrong. And I've been in several business ventures with other people and on my own that just didn't work out. But, I never look back at those things with any bitterness or regret at all, because at the time I believed it was the right thing to do. And most importantly, my successes now have come from my previous failures. Everything I do now is always with that hindsight about what happened before and what I thought could happen and didn't happen. And so, yes, it's disappointing. Yes, you lose money. Yes, it's risky. But if you need to do it and you're going to do it, do it. And if it doesn't work out, and there's a good chance that it won't, because lots of things can happen, you just pick yourself up, you learn from what happened, and then you may take a breather. I've taken a breather of a few years, and then you get that energy comes in again, and you just go again, and you've just got to be relentless and resilient.
Yeah. So you got out of the working environment because you were I guess stressed and dealing with all these emotions, while it just wasn't for you. You had enough at that point. You've launched your first business now, and it hasn't gone the way you planned it. Where were you mentally? How were you after that?
I was nearly broke, first of all, and I had a young family and a mortgage, and I think I had £4,000 left in my bank. That's all I had left. But luckily, again, I think that it sounds risky to do it, but I knew I had some skills. I always knew that the demand for my skills in a corporate would be there if I needed as a safety net. So I always had that. So I ended up, I quickly got a job offer to go back into the corporate world as a safety net, almost immediately, and sort of rebuild myself. But as I did that and rebuild, the thirst to just get out of it again and just do the same thing again was even worse than before. It's like an addiction, really. So, within about 18 months, 2 years of going back into that environment, I knew I was going to have to do that again, and that's ultimately what I did again. But once you've got that sort of bug for building a business, and you sort of say, okay, that's where it went wrong, I can try this next time, it's sort of easier the second time, if you know what I mean. I guess I shouldn't say, I guess it's like why people get hooked on drugs, the second the third one, but it's kind of addictive.
Yeah. So what happened with your second business then?
So again, I guess for people watching, they want to hear that I turned into an Elon Musk or a Richard Branson quickly. My story is one of successive disappointments earlier on, right? So I got involved with a DNA, some weird stuff that I've been involved in. I got involved in a DNA laboratory set up in Wales with the government were deregulating the way they test DNA and for criminal purposes, and putting out to tender. I got involved with a scientist who was going to set that up. Ultimately, that failed because this particular person decided he was a subject matter expert, and we backed him and partnered with him to build that business, and he decided he didn't want to do it. So it wasn't for him. He didn't want the pressure. So that big massive learning point for me now always is, you may have good product, you may have a solid business plan, you may have all the projections are there, but if the team isn't fully bought into it, and also you have key man risk, you've got a big problem. So again, it was another setback, and I put substantial amount of my own money. I sort of build myself back up and at that point, and then put money back into that, and that didn't work out either. So again, you just learn, you regroup. I didn't risk as much of my capital on that as I did before with clevercab.com, but it was still like a bit of a blow, and then back to the corporate environment. So I've got this pattern of, early on, I've been out of the corporate environment for 9 years now, but my early days were, work in a corporate, save money, use that money to invest, partner, develop ideas, try it. In my case, mostly didn't work. Keep going, So I think if you've got some disposable income and you've got this urge and this mindset, you just keep going at it until you find success.
So Clever Cab, the first business that didn't quite work out, was that, what kind of business was that? Was that kind of similar to what Uber is, or?
It was literally Uber. So we had 1,600 cars online in London. It was web-based at the time. This is 2000. We actually started in 1999, and 2000 left the bank to do it on a full-time basis. But it wasn't even a smartphone. People didn't know what smartphones were. I mean, it's probably before, Tyler, you're probably walking around in nappy, to be honest. It was, so they didn't have, you had dial-up internet still. There wasn't broadband. So effectively, what caused that to not be viable was the lack of available technology at the time. I mean, we wanted to obviously we needed to get the internet into cabs, and at the time the cost for bandwidth onto a mobile phone was sky high. Like a gigabyte would have been about £100 a day or something for that. So the commercials at the time and the technology didn't work. Subsequently, as you know, it's ubiquitous now. You can get anything on your phone. The phones are mega powerful. They're a decent platform for organizing work, but at the time back then it wasn't. So we were just, basically the summaries for clevercab.com, we were just way too early.
Wrong timing. Good product, good idea, but just the market wasn't ready for it.
So important as well. I mean, and that's the thing, people beat themselves up about why businesses don't work, but there are, sometimes there's nothing wrong with the vision, there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with the product. It's just sometimes the market isn't right at that time to accept that product. You find out 5 years later that, okay, I was too early, and that's that. And people, some people say, oh, I don't want to talk about Clever Cab. I bet you're gutted. Look what's happened with Uber. I bet you're gutted. I'm not at all gutted. I had a great time. I learned a lot. I got out of the banking environment for 2 years. Made some really good friends and some really good networks. I learned loads of things. So no, I think, and I look back proudly on it, that I actually created something prior to Uber and Lyft and Careem and all these other ride sharing networks. I was doing that before them, but ultimately it was too early.
So you failed your first business after quitting your job. You've gone back to work to get some capital and get some finances together. You've started your second venture, and that hasn't gone to plan. When did things start going right?
I did a few more years in the corporate, and obviously the paychecks get bigger the longer you stay in company. That's a good thing about sticking around in corporates. Is that, and investment banking, I worked really hard, and I really did work hard, and I was pretty good at what I did, but ultimately investment banking is an overpaid career. Let's be honest about that. Like in tech, I was getting hundreds of thousands of pounds in bonuses and things, and not particularly, we could go into a big philosophical debate about that versus nurses and things, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And actually, I decided in 2013, after investing in other people's businesses but just soldiering on with investment banking, that I was just going to leave and be full time pursue partnering with people to build businesses or building my own business. So basically, in 2013, I had enough money to effectively retire at 42, 43, and I decided that I would do some consultancy, and all of the money that I would get from consultancy, I would plow into investing and starting businesses. So my success over the last few years has been really taking on board everything I learned in the corporate world, in the investing world, in starting my own businesses, and working with friends and other people who've been starting businesses up, and putting in really good, big amounts of money to start up, and be joining with them as a director and building the business with them. So probably my biggest success to date, personally, I guess, and it's hard. I mean, that's another debate. What is success? But my biggest success in terms of money, I guess, or accumulated wealth, or however you want to call it, is working with impact. Sustainable businesses and where the businesses where the world changed. So I made big, very early stage investments in vegan foods, in sustainable consumer goods, bamboo-based consumer goods, in solar storage businesses. And when I say invested, not passively, like actually becoming a non-exec director, working with them, grafting, ideation, marketing, everything, working with them. And so as a standalone person, I still haven't found the Clive Hawkins business. And as you know, we've talked, I'm starting another business now on my own.
Yeah.
But as a Clive Hawkins on my own business, I still haven't succeeded. But I'm still continuing. But in terms of partnering with other people and with early stage businesses, I've been very, very fortunate and successful in terms of some of those businesses have gone from turning over £1,500 a month to 1.5 million a month. So, 1,000 times revenue. And that's where I am now in terms of being a type of dragon to those businesses and working with them.
Yeah. Incredible. Really nice to hear. So really your main successes have come from your learning experience with your failures. It's allowed you to then work out what businesses have been suitable for you to invest in and help them grow based on your mistakes.
That's exactly right. And I mean, I've got as you probably know, when you network and when you start businesses, you grow your network, and you actually start to have friends who are also starting businesses, and you see what's working with them and you see what's not working with them, not just your own experiences but other people's experiences. And I think probably one of the key skills I think that I admire in successful people, and I try myself to incorporate, is lose your ego and just literally listen to other people, see what they do, and don't be afraid. People are afraid to hear, your product's not very good or it won't work. It's shocking, you invest your time and your heart and soul into something, and then people are saying, I don't know, that's not going to work. But you have to listen to them, and you have to also realize that you're not good at everything, and you might not be good at finance, or you might not be good at marketing, or you might not be good at human resources, and you have to bring on people that can do that and delegate to them. And I've spotted, so many people making similar mistakes. And when you see a business where they understand the things that you've seen and that you see have caused businesses to fail, you start thinking, okay, this is a team I can work with. And ultimately, in my case, I've backed those businesses, and my own failures have given me the information to know, okay, this company has headed off or covered 90% of the issues I've seen in other companies, or at least they're thinking in the right way. And I'm going to join with them, and I'm going to put my money into them and help them succeed, because they, that they have the DNA or the right ingredients, whatever you want to call it, to succeed. And so it's You see a lot of 18-year-old people who've made a lot of money, and 20-year-old. That's great, but it's not. I'm 52. It's taken me 30 years to work out what the right formulas are, and I'll probably still make mistakes.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's all about continuously learning from your mistakes. I mean, we're going to make mistakes forever. Well, we're always making mistakes. So it's just about learning from them. And I think your story helps us realize that failure is part of the journey. What do you think? What do you think were the key factors in some of your successes today in allowing you to spot those businesses and those partnerships? What do you think were some of the key factors in the success of that?
I think being part of it is a network, because no one wants to work. You can't just invest and be part of a business. People want to trust. It's a two-way thing, right? So people want to trust you. You've got to trust them. You're putting your money into it, and then people, also someone who's building a business doesn't want idiots around them or people going to cause them a lot of problems. So you have to be a nice person, and that sounds a bit weird, but you have to be a good listener, a good reader of people. You have to be, basically ready to partner in a proper way with people you work with, and when you find, so it's about really finding good partners, and then them opening up and being honest about the business. That's often a problem, is that you get people become hypnotized by their own business, and they're not, and they don't want to see the negatives in the business. They only want to see the positives, and then they become quite defensive about what could go wrong. So I think one of the things that I do quite well is I'm very straightforward with people, and I'm very never in a nasty way, but in a direct way. It's like my wife hates it when we go to a restaurant and the food's awful, and they say, "Oh, how was your meal?" And a lot of people, they've been sitting there eating their food and saying, "This is horrible, it's cold, it's horrible," and then someone comes up and says, "How's your food?" And they say, "Oh, lovely." And no one likes that uncomfortable confrontation, whereas I'm quite, I wouldn't say happy to, but I'm quite comfortable with just telling it how it is. Not to be smart, not to try and win over on a person, just because I think people benefit from hearing it. And as long as you can back it up and you're not just trying to knock people down, be honest with people, just be honest. And people love the honesty thing. And when I find business owners who are honest about what could happen and what's really happening, and I'm honest with them, you can sense a good partnership. So, just finding good partners and knowing and reading people and knowing who's real. That's really, I think that's important. And there's a lot of BS out there.
I mean, it's quite inspiring that you've, used your experiences and your failures to help you trust other people, because, investing in other people's business requires a lot of trust. So I think that's quite inspiring to see that.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I would say I sometimes try to pinpoint what I'm good at, and I find it difficult to. I was never the best technologist. I don't think I'm the best creative person in terms of marketing. But one thing I think I've learned is the business of people, and trying to, quickly find out what the key parts of the business are and the risks are, and whether they're able to engage and open up about how they're going to make it work. And if you find people in business that are very superfluous and just it's very high level, and they just keep dodging the detail and not being real, it's uninvestable, because you have to. You're absolutely right. If I'm putting in 100,000, 200,000 of my own money, you have to know that person that's looking after it respects it and is being real about what the problems, and can communicate with you when things aren't going well, so that you can then partner with them. But building a business is mostly sorting problems, sorting out issues. There are lots of days where happy days. We won this account or this account, and we managed to break China or do this. They're the good things. But most of the time, you're really trying to head problems off.
Yeah.
And if the team isn't realistic, or is not accepting of their own capabilities, or willing to get help, that brings a lot of businesses down.
Yeah.
So it's about trying to work out if you've got the right team and can actually partner with someone.
Okay. So there are lots of people who have ideas and want to start a business. Some who may be working a part-time job, some who may be working a full-time job. I mean, what advice, based on your experiences and your connections with other businesses that have done well, what advice would you give to anyone who wanted to start a business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think firstly, everyone searches for the brand new thing. They're always searching for that thing that everyone else has forgotten about, trying to get that one thing that's going to be worth billions and billions. And I'd say that you don't always have to do that. You don't always have to look to be a billion. Business isn't always about being a billionaire or zillionaire, the richest man in the world. Of course, it'd be great if we could all do that, but chances are we're not all going to do that.
Yeah.
I think being an entrepreneur can be just about satisfying your own ability to pay yourself. Be your own person. That's fine. And then you do that, and if you get to that, and you're the type of person who can replicate it and franchise it, you can do that. But I'd say, you push yourself as hard as you want to be pushed. But you've got to retain a work-life balance as well. That's part of the motivation for me getting out of the corporate world and desperately trying these things, was really to try and achieve self-management, the ability to go on holiday when I wanted, the ability to not have a boss, the ability to take a day off. Those things were part of my drivers. But people seek sometimes something that's too complicated. They're going to create something new, or new program, or new application. Sometimes just take something works and do it better. I mean, look at Papa John's Pizza. I'm sure they didn't look at Pizza Hut and say, well, someone's already done the pizza. And they've done a good job of it, and they make billions, and they all get paid very nicely. And you can just do a good job of something works, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you didn't invent something doesn't mean that you're not an entrepreneur. You can still do the best burger, the best whatever, and just creating that business is enough. So I think that's first thing I would say is, don't obsess about creating the brand new thing. The second thing is just patience. As people, I've noticed people, the whole social media world now, everybody's looking at everyone. Oh, look, they're in the Maldives, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're wearing this, they've got this watch, they've got that. There's this thirst for everyone to have everything, because they see people doing it. So that drives, I get kids coming to me, friends' kids come to me and literally call up and say, how have you got all this money? Can you show me how to make money? I need to make money. I want to have this car. Why have you got a Ferrari? Why have you got this? Why have you got that? And it's like, well, I am like old. Look at me. It did take I did have to get on the 542 train for years and lose most of my hair. So it's be patient. Not everything's going to work. It is going to take time, and you will have to start from a very small amount. And like playing Monopoly, you start with your 1,500 quid, and then you might at the end of the game end up with 10 grand. But you have to go around the board a few times, and that is there are people who make money very quickly. It does happen in the world of 8 billion people, whatever we've got. But most people are not going to do that. Most people are going to have to fail and start again and go back to zero and keep going. And if you keep going and you listen to people and you learn, you will make it. You will make it. You might not be Elon Musk at the end of it, but you'll be happy with what you've done yourself, be happy with your own achievements, and you will be in a better position financially. I truly believe that.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, especially now with social media, everyone's looking for the fast money, the quick money to make their millions, overnight. And in reality, that is not reality.
No.
And I think it's...
There's nothing wrong with ambition, though, is there?
No, nothing.
I love that. If the bad thing is that people think it's easy, the good thing is that they're ambitious.
Yeah.
I think I love ambitious people. you've got to take a heavy dose of reality and realize that you have to couple ambition with hard work at the end of the day, and risk. That, you know, that I've got a friend who has spent 40 years working as an accountant and hates it every day. Every time I meet him, he just, all he talks about, he hates his job. And I say to him, why don't you leave it then? Because it's too risky. But you know, there is
life is risky.
No easy solution, right? You have to take a bit of risk. You have to, you know, I think the last thing I would say really is that I've always been willing to push myself into uncomfortable spaces, into things I don't like to do, are boring, I'm not qualified for. I've worked with people sometimes didn't want to do, but you know, one of the things that I made a lot of money off is bog roll, right? So who wants to be in the bog roll business? Not many people, right? But I tell you what, you can make a lot of money out of that, but it's not the sexiest thing in the world. So, you know, if you want to be in the sexy things, and if you want to do everything that you want to do, sometimes that's not where the money is. Sometimes you have to graft and do. You know, they say there's a saying up north in England, where there's muck, there's brass. Basically means sometimes it's the dirty crap jobs that will make the most money, and it's true.
Right. Again, really important message. Really important message. The last thing I wanted to touch on was the name of this playlist is called Inspire and Be Inspired. So I wanted to ask you, what inspires you and what has inspired you throughout your journey?
Another good question, really. I guess in general, I'm inspired by people who are relentless and against really, you know, adversity, I guess. I mean, people, not necessarily a businessman, but the person I always feel, springs to mind when people ask me about that is someone like Stephen Hawking, who was like really from an early age was doomed. Really, in his 20s, he was paralyzed and was constantly told that he wouldn't survive very long, and ended up living to about 70, but couldn't move at all, even an eye, you know, just about move at one eyeball, and yet became a massive force for change in science, and led lectures and traveled internationally, got married, had children, and the thought of being in a wheelchair like that terrifies me, being locked in that position, and yet had this relentless ability just to do beyond what we can do as able-bodied people. We just seem to do all those things. So I think that life is an attitude, and there are people in life who are, looking for excuses that everything that's gone wrong in their life is someone else's fault.
Yeah. And
there are people who just say, I don't care, about what life is happening around me. I'm just going to do the best thing I can. My dad is one of those people. He gets up every morning and he says he's just lucky to be alive, and every day is a great day.
Yeah.
And he's a natural born optimist. And I think that, with a heavy dose of reality as well, that, people who are optimistic, relentless, keep going, with the sports people or, in business, that's what I seek to do. I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking, okay, I took the easy route. I don't want to be doing. I want to make sure that I did as much as I could within my capability, whatever that is, and I admire those people who do the same thing in sports, in business, and whatever, and take risks and push themselves. So that's really what I try to mirror myself.
Yeah. Do you know, every time I do one of these interviews, I always end up getting some kind of goosebumps because, just hearing that just inspires me. And one of the reasons I love speaking to people like yourself. Is there anything that you'd like to add? Anything that you'd like to add for the viewers that may be listening? Anything you would like to plug?
Not really at the moment. I'm building another business at the moment, but I think it would be cheesy to plug that. And I'll just say, really, I'm excited. I'm building, like I say, I'm 52, coming up 52. This will be another business. I'm really excited about the future and about the potential of that. I'm building into that lots of things into the business, but into myself as well. You know, I used to build a business thinking every business is going to make £1 trillion,
Yeah.
and you start to wind it back a bit and think, you know what, it's okay to make a few $100,000 is fine. Yeah, that's more than fine. That's like loads of money for most people, and actually just enjoy it. You know, but building a business is not about, you know, an end goal. It's about just having the ability to do it, and it's a privilege. If you can get yourself into the position of building a business where, you know, you it's a privilege and it's fun, and you just learn so much. So, yeah, that's, you know, and look, I think that people like yourselves who are, you know, you're quite an entrepreneurial person. I love meeting people and sharing ideas and seeing if we can help each other. And probably that's the last thing I would say. I mean, I'm always, I'm not a spiritual person at all. I'm a massive atheist.
Yeah.
But I do really like, I love the concept of the karma concept sort of thing. And I always, I'm always trying to help people out, and somehow it always, you know, if you're good to people, I've always been good to, even when I've had to make people redundant, you try and be nice and everything, and they always come back to you and say, oh, you know, you'd be surprised they come, you know, get in contact with you and say, oh, can you help me with this, or I can do something for you, and just be nice. Really, the world's full of nasty things. Just try and be nice, and the karma will come back.
Yeah, give and you shall receive. I mean, the act of giving is so rewarding in itself.
Yeah.
And very often, as you say, it does somehow work its way back to you.
Might not be immediate.
No, it might not be immediate.
Might take 20 years.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's been lovely talking with you, Clive. The last thing that we say on this show is support the TING. So if you just tell the viewers to support the TING and hit the like and hit the subscribe.
Absolutely, support the TING. This guy's doing a great job, and you know, wish you all the best, Tyler, in what you're doing. And hit the subscribe button wherever it is on one of the side, and tell your friends, and let's keep growing the network.
Fantastic. All right, thanks, Clive.
Cheers. Thank you.